How'd it go? Did you guys feel anything different? Did you feel connected to your insides? Let me know if there's like a piece that was like confusing or any questions.
No, I just found that the visual of going down and up really helpful because I was doing the complete opposite and squeezing everything and then not doing that. So
Squeezing on your inhale.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
because I
So,
was picturing inhale everything going up and then exhale everything going down. That was my visual. So I was always doing that. And so this is completely foreign to me, but it's great. I
so
have to reach.
when you notice that, and a lot of people do that actually,
Mhm.
why do you think you had that pattern? I'm just curious.
I think so I grew up, I was a dancer and I don't
Ah,
know, like I feel like it was very like,
yep.
just squeeze,
Just
hold
like
together.
posture, pull it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we say the words, and this is where words really matter, like when you say um lengthen, I don't know, maybe some dancer
Mhm.
words are like pull it in
Yeah,
or
it's
tighten it
all
in.
about like going up and whatever. It was never like go down,
But they never said breathe in, right? Like that wasn't like breathe
Yeah.
in and do that. But
Mhm.
there's something about the word like lengthen or suck in or breathe in that makes us feel like, oh, breathe in means
Mhm.
like pull my tummy in.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
this a lot. I think I was probably guilty of it years ago too, but like I'm just curious
Mhm.
why we develop that opposite pattern, which actually makes us fight our own core.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'd
Yeah,
say
and a
that.
lot of dancers that I treat tell me that same thing.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, like we always had to like especially ballet."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
It's
so
like
interesting.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so I went on a speed run yesterday and I was like, okay, I can't do it the entire time just because I hate
No,
speed
no.
runs anyways. No, but in my mind I was like, let's just see how much I can do because this is new.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so it's helpful because it took my mind off the speed. Um, but it's helpful because yeah, it was totally helpful. I'm like, okay, so I just kept that visual of that like animatic that you had with, with the side
Yeah.
like that
Yeah,
helped.
yeah. Cool. And uh with your speed run, because I get this
Yeah.
question a lot, like, oh, should I be like holding my core my whole run or my
Yeah.
whole hike in the woods or like
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
you're doing? And the answer is no,
Yeah, well, because
because
I've come to that conclusion because I've been really focused on breathing, but the problem is I've just been breathing all wrong. So this is super helpful. So
okay, yeah, like I said, I think if you keep practicing, you're gonna see a difference in your runs, which is really
Mhm.
cool. And yeah, like just in case anybody, the takeaway is not to hold your inner core all the time. We talked about how important it is to have that full functional breath. And then when we're doing cardio, like going for a big walk, hike, run, even playing a full soccer game, like you don't squeeze it the whole time, right? Like it's your inner core, once you practice it enough and do the things that you're supposed to do with it, like you would squats, lunges, push-ups, planks, um, training your inner core, then it will naturally have its own rhythm and it will, in theory, right, fire when it's supposed to. But right now, because it's new, we have to be so mindful. So it's almost more like a mental
Yeah.
practice. And then that connection to actually actioning what's inside. Great. That's so cool that that you discovered something and that it's going to help you with your run. How about you, Debbie? How did things go for you? If you practiced, if you
Good,
didn't, that's okay.
good, yeah. So part of my job is I'm alone in a room planting seeds for a couple
Mm,
hours every day. So that's why I said yesterday, I'm really excited because I can do this while literally while I'm working, I can do this.
okay.
And it can be very mindful. Um, I did already have a concept of not constantly holding uh, my stomach or core or whatever. I had to
Mhm.
unlearn that. And it was someone who did some meditation and practices who taught me how to unlearn that.
Cool. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I already had a concept of being able to relax, and I haven't had children. And I think that can really affect all of that a ton. And so
Yes, for
it's,
sure.
yeah,
Like the pregnancy, the active labor, that is like, I don't want to call it trauma because it's like a natural thing that women's bodies
yeah.
go through, but it is an event that sort of stretches everything out, and then we do have to retrain it. But having said that, I've had clients that don't have children, and maybe they battle things like IBS or incontinence for whatever reason, back pain. Sometimes when we just have any sort of pain in our bodies, if we're overcoming an injury or like a repetitive chronic thing, that like we start to hold. And even though we think we're only holding outside, something's happening inside. So the fact that you sounds like don't have trouble with that, that's really great.
Some back stuff. I was T-boned. So I was in a couple of accidents. I was T-boned once on each
Yeah.
side. And actually I had spoken to you. That was the last time that you and I sort of communicated about stuff. But so that was also part of like back issues specifically. And that was a lot of recovery. So
Totally. But it sounds
yeah,
like you've let go of that story, right? Like you're,
yeah,
yes, I've had that T-bone,
yeah.
car accident in the past.
Mhm,
Maybe for some time you had some back strain and pain, but
mhm,
now that you have unlearned the pattern of holding,
mhm,
you have breath with ease, and
mhm,
you feel connected to it. Am I right?
mhm.
That's
Yeah, I just don't have
great.
any really specific practices with breath work, or I'd like to learn more about because it's apparently very powerful. I've heard lots of things, but I've never actually done more than like the 4 count breath is the only thing I know. And that's more
Yeah.
for anxiety. It's anxiety stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about it is it's for anxiety, but then because now you know like the beauty of the anatomy of it, it can also translate into like when you're doing your box breathing, you can engage it if you want, right? Because you don't have the tendency of holding, or you can use it to relax. Like you can now play with what am I going to do breath work for the purpose for today? And if it hits 2 words, then that's great. So I think that that's a good point there. Like, oh, I don't really have a practice. And that's where you can kind of get creative. And, if you are curious on having a step-by-step specific method, at the end of the workshop, I'll share 2 different ways that we could work together virtually. But even as just a launch standpoint from these 2 days, now you kind of have this like baseline idea of like how powerful it really can be. So today we are actually going to do a little bit more practical stuff. Um, let's just review quickly, especially for those who need the replay, what our inner core is. Do you guys want to jump in and tell me if you remember what is your inner core? And then we'll go into why it's related to breath. So, do you guys remember what is your inner core?
Diaphragm is
Yeah.
the pelvic, not the bone, but the pelvic, whatever, slings or
Yeah. The pelvic floor. Yeah. They look like hammocks or slings.
yeah.
You got it. So we just got top and bottom. There's 2 more pieces of the inner core.
Goes all the way around. Forget
Yeah.
what the term.
That's okay. Just exactly. Corset muscle. We don't need to know the fancy anatomy names. And what is the last one? This one's pretty key, but it's hard to feel, right?
Oh shoot. I thought
It's like school.
I know. I didn't write that one down.
Was it
I'll give
something
you
with the left and right sides?
yeah, where? Good job, Debbie.
Abdominal left
Think
and right or something.
think about 360. So we talked about top, bottom, we have all the way around. Where does it insert? Where does that corset insert?
Oh, spine. There was something down the spine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you picture your back, it's one bone on top of the other, and the deepest spinal stabilizers are called your multifidi. Again, doesn't matter. I just like to tell people it looks like a skinny Christmas tree,
Mhm.
branches, and those are your deep stabilizer muscles. And like not to get too like physiological here, but our deep stabilizer muscles have a certain specific kind of muscle fiber that is like built to kind of fire all day long, sort of like low twitch, okay? But then your big muscles, things like your big glutes, your big back muscles, they're your big movers and they like contract to do the big movement. So those deep muscles are kind of, they don't have a lot of big range of motion, but they're kind of like good at being stable and firing and on. So if your corset and your diaphragm and pelvic floor are working well, like functionally with your breath, then those deep spinal stabilizers can do their job really well, which means the outer muscles get a chance to be at rest. They're not the ones holding you nice and tall. That's does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then why was it important to have our full functional breath? Do you guys remember why is our inner core connected to our breath? I guess it's a two-part question. And why is functional breath really important for our health? Not even just from a core standpoint, but for our health.
Was it connected to nervous system regulation? Part of that.
Hmm. Yeah. So can you tell me more?
That's all I remember.
That's okay. That's really good.
Getting,
Timmy,
yeah,
I'll give you
oxygen into
a
everything.
chance here.
I would just say like just being able to get oxygen into everything and
Yeah, oxygen. Right. Okay. So full functional breath means that we get to nourish all our cells, all our muscles and tissues, joints, even our brain with oxygen. How can we best get that oxygen into our body? What do we have to do first? And I don't think I talked about this yesterday, so but I'm just going to put it out there. How do you think we can get fresh, nourishing oxygen into our bodies? What do we have to do first?
breathe. Breathe through our nose.
Breathe. Which way? Yeah, through our nose. That's good. And how do we make sure that we can fill up our lungs? What do we have to do first? This is like kind of a trick question, I guess.
Relax, expand.
Relax, expand. What do we have to do though if there's already like gunky air at the bottom?
Oh, exhale. Exhale. I don't know.
Ah,
Breathe
that's it.
deeply.
We have to exhale. We have to exhale. Okay. So today we're going to do a few things, but one thing yesterday we really talked about the inhale because I really want you guys to understand that naturally, physiologically on our inhale, that's when things relax and open. Exhale is a chance to exit the stagnant air, remove the air from the base of the lungs so that there's room inside to fill up again. Right? So if somebody tends to shallow breathe, if somebody tends to have tightness in their pelvic floor and they don't have that full functional breath, they probably also have sort of this like trapped old air that's in the bottom of their lungs. And then when you have that, that's also going to drive this feeling of shallow breathing. And then remember, we talked about when we have shallow breathing, it means we're using accessory muscles. And then accessory muscles tell our brain what?
That we're exhausted. There's not much air, so we have to.
Yeah, we're exhausted. There's not much air. what do we need to do when we're exhausted and we don't have much air? What is like, is that safe or does that feel unsafe for our
No,
brain?
it's dangerous. So you're in danger. You're
You
in
feel danger. And
fight.
then
You're
that's that
fight and
nervous
flight.
system. That's right. So nervous system has two pieces: rest and relax, fight or flight, parasympathetic versus sympathetic. But let's just call it fight or flight because it's easier, rest and relax. So are we going to rest and relax if we feel shallow and hungry for air? No. So then that is going to feed into your brain, whether you know it or not, right? You could just be sitting at your desk working at your computer. You could just be driving your kids somewhere. And then you're like starting to shallow breathe. But it's just sometimes it's not even enough to feel like you are, but it's a little bit. And then it just drives the cortisol up. And then you keep having this trapped air. And then when we shallow breathe, it feels like we're hungry. But what happens is when we're hungry for air, what's that word? You kind of like, have you ever hyperventilated and someone tells you to like slow down your breath? And if you haven't, this is something that, it's like something therapists use to help calm anxiety, or when someone's having a panic attack, they like breathe into a bag. And it seems funny, right? Because if you're breathing into a bag, you're not getting fresh air. It feels like you're just sucking back in carbon dioxide. Well, there's a reason for that, and it's kind of counterintuitive. But when we start to mouth breathe because we're hyperventilating, because the nose is taking too long, when we exhale through our mouth, it's very fast and it's like a big volume of air coming out all at once. It actually throws out too much carbon dioxide all at once. And it tells our red blood cells, like not tells, it changes the ratio of our red blood cells too fast, which then makes us feel like, oh, I need to get more air. And then that drives the hunger as well, that feeling. So I'm just trying to show you guys that it really is not just like one cascade effect. There's that muscle side, which is the tension. There's the fight or flight side. And then there's actually like down to our red blood cell levels, um, that indicating to us that we need to breathe. So this is all to circle back to the exhale is super important to empty all the way out. Slow it down. If we can breathe through our nose when we're doing breath work, that is the best. If you're working out, if you're doing speed work, for example, or you're, hiking or doing a vigorous activity, you're going to mouth breathe when you get to that point, and that's normal. That's okay. If you watch the Olympians, right, the sprinters, they're mouth breathing by the end of their sprint. That's totally fine. But when we're in a purposeful, mindful setting, we're going to try to really use our nose, and it's like training our breath so that when we get in the crisis type situations, I'm not saying running is a crisis, but that's kind of where your body's at when you're speed work training, right? It's going to be like it's trained. Your breath has been trained to support you. Does that make sense? It's kind of like how you don't want to be in crisis and then go to a therapist. If we go regularly and have that emotional regulation and that coping tools for anxiety, we don't get to that panic attack stage. And it's the same with like training our breath. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yep.
Okay. So let's put our hand on our heart, one hand, and one hand on your belly. I also have my mat out. So if you guys have a mat or you're like in a room, because we're going to try a plank in a few moments. If you don't and you're in the office, you're going to do it at the wall. So you don't have to go on the ground. Okay. So one hand on heart, one hand on belly. I just want you to shut down your eyes. And first, just notice your breath. Just simply notice how your breath is behaving. And then I want you to, on purpose, settle your exhale. So yesterday we really focused on inhale. We will again today, but right now you're going to really settle your exhale, and through your nose. In yoga, we call it a ujjayi breath or a yogic breath. if you constrict the back of your throat, it's like a kid fogging up the mirror of a car or like a window, but you're using your nose, so it's going to sound like all it does is it slows down the exhale. And you'll kind of really feel like your rib cage is coming down and in, hopefully, and your belly kind of softening in. And even up here, your rib cage is also here. We just call it chest, right? But like our rib cage is also under there. It's also going to feel like it's like collapsing a little bit. Now, when you need to inhale, let it happen, however you want it to happen. And then when you reach the top of your inhale, come back to that slow exhale. Again, let your inhale happen however it needs to. And then exhale, slow it down. One more time. Breathing in on your go, on your pace. And breathing out. And ideally, you felt your 3-part breath. Okay, like you felt a little bit of the rise in your belly on the inhale, a little rise in the rib cage here on the next part, and then last is the upper part. And then as you exhaled, there was this like softening and narrowing of the rib cage, chest, rib cage, and the bottom rib cage. And then it felt like the belly got softer in side to side too, right? We're a 360 being. And now we're all seated right now. So first, just like, and you don't have to tell me, or you can type it in the chat, or you can like write it down just so for your own record. Like it's nice to journal about these things because then, like, let's say in a month from now, you can check in, or in a week from now, you'll be surprised if you actually practice, you will change. Right now, when you check in, just be honest. Where are you at? Right? Where's your pelvic floor at? Is it 0, like from a scale of 0 to 10? 0 being, yeah, it's totally relaxed, it's in the basement, or 10 being like, no, it's like stuck in the rooftops. Like, where is your pelvic floor? Okay, rate that one first. You can just jot it in your iPhone or your notes or your pen and paper if you're old school, right? Just like 0 to 10. 0 is basement, 10 is that rooftop patio with all these uptight suits. Are you there? Or are you in the basement chilling? Okay. Where are you at with the pelvic floor? We just did a mindful breathing. So just write it down. And then where was your corset? Like, did you feel your corset had that full expansion and that full in? Like, where was that at from 0 to 10? Okay. Just be honest, meet yourself where you're at right now. And then the rib cage. So it's hard to feel your diaphragm. So I never really tell my clients to rate their diaphragm. We gauge it with the rib cage. So when you were inhaling versus your exhaling, did it feel like an accordion? Did it feel like, if your fingers were on your rib cage, when you inhaled, like your fingers expanded, and then as you exhaled, there was this softening and the fingers came together down and in. And that'll help you kind of gauge if your diaphragm had movement. And the multifidi, the Christmas tree muscle in the back, those are like, you can't really feel those, but you kind of need to trust that when you're doing all the rest of the core, they can function properly. So jot that down and just use it as your, like a benchmark for you. Okay. Super important. And if you tended to rate higher than 5, I would say your homework for the next little while would really be to train it down to the basics. It's not to say you can't do a little bit of let's try the contraction, but if your tendency is to be holding and tight, it's just like that bicep thing we talked about on day one. We're not going to do bicep curls if our bicep is even halfway stuck, right? Because then we're just tightening it even more and it's going to be even harder to open it all the way. So I know it can be very frustrating for some people because they just want a stronger core. They just want to strengthen and get that six pack, get that slimmer waist, all those things, feel good, feel strong, protect my back. But we can't really do that safely and functionally if we don't have that full range of motion. So I know I talk about relaxing a lot, and this is where you just have to give yourself a bit of grace, meet yourself where you're at, but also give yourself that tough love, right? Like, okay, the honesty, the tough love, and like just sticking with it and not throwing in the towel and going back to random exercises like planks and crunches and sit-ups if you don't have your inner core, first of all, that you can connect to it and that it can have that full range of motion. Because like we said, our body's like a house. We can keep working on the walls, but if the foundation isn't there to support us, it will crumble. And we don't want that for our bodies. Okay. Okay. So again, because this is only a 2-day workshop, I'm going to take you to the next level, but keep in mind, I would not be doing this with a paying client if they weren't ready. So I really want you guys to be safe. Okay. So just be honest and we're going to try. And even if we fail, it's not failing, it's information. Okay. Information to meet ourselves where we're at. And where you're at is where you need to be. And that way you can take the next step to move forward. And if the next step to move forward is still to relax, okay. All right. So it's also cool because it's mindfulness, right? Like when we work our bodies with intention, purpose, and like being here to feel our bodies, showing up live, committing to yourself. This is a lot of the stuff I teach inside my program because if we jump ahead, we're actually not doing ourselves any favors and we end up getting in trouble with injuries, right? So it's really great to practice that mindful mind-body connection when we're actually moving our body. Okay, so I'm going to go lie on the floor to demo. You can come with me to Debbie, I know you're in an office, so if you need to do it on the wall, it's just going to feel a little easier on the wall, but it's still a plank. So what we're going to do is a plank, and I want you to just go ahead and do a plank without thinking about it. Okay, so try to just assume a plank position. Think about what you're feeling, but don't think about all the intricacies of your core just yet. Okay? So I'm just gonna come down to my hands and knees. Debbie, you might be at the wall and you'll put your hands as low as you want and then like step your legs back. You know what I mean? It's a wall plank, or you could use your desk if your desk is not rolly and you
got a spot on the floor. I'm in a meeting room, so I'm actually going to try the floor.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yes.
So I'll stop talking about the wall.
Yeah.
If anyone watching the replay is in an office, you can use the wall. But we are going to go on the floor. So when you're in a plank, now I could talk about shoulders for another workshop, but you really got to make sure your shoulders are not like winging out of your back. Okay. We want to press the earth away from our chest. Open your 10 fingers nice and wide, ground through your palms, length of your fingers, fingertip. And right now we're in a table. And then we're going to take our legs straight out. Now you can also plank from me. And your head, don't lose your head away from your spine. Remember, the multifidi go up to the base of your head. So the gaze of your face should be right in front of your hands and then center. And we're just holding this plank. And I just want you to hold it for a moment, maybe a couple of breaths. Just notice what you're feeling. And then if you don't like that, you can also do forearm plank. So I've just brought myself down to my forearms. I'm pressing the ground away from my chest. Hips, shoulders, knees are in one long line. It's not a hiked up hip. Make sure your body's in a straight line rather than a shape. Okay, so let's meet each other just for a moment so you can ease out of your plank and tell me, there's no wrong answer, okay? Tell me what you felt working. And I'll also tell you what most people feel when they first start these kinds of exercises. What was working? I mean, it's a pretty total body, but what do you think was like most prominent?
Well, I probably have to unlearn things because I just immediately just squeeze everything.
Okay. What did you squeeze most?
Wait a second. So I know, I'm like trying to think. I mean,
That's
well,
okay.
so this just immediately goes tight, like suit my core.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it's
That's
I
not
harder
like
to like expand the rib cage.
okay. So that's not wrong though, Timmy, because you
Okay.
are in a plank. Like, right? But I'm curious what happens next for you. So we'll come back to that in a second. Did
Okay.
you feel anything in your shoulders or your quads or your glutes, or was it mostly center?
I think it's full body, I think.
Full body, everything just tenses.
Yeah.
Okay. Debbie?
I felt as we were putting our arms and the weight and spreading hands, so I could feel it in those. And then I could feel it in my core, in my legs, in my back. It kind of like a lot of all over, really. But yeah, like
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
glutes, like everything. At some
So
points, everything.
yeah. Okay, that's great. A lot of that's really good. I feel that you guys are pretty aware, which is really great. Now let's go back, and before you get into the plank, I'm gonna like cue you through engaging your inner core first. So go lie on your tummy and put your hands under your shoulders. Just feel your breath first. So when you inhale, the belly should kind of go into the mat, right? And then your rib cages sort of expand, and your rib cages are on the back too. So you should be able to kind of feel like your back is expanding behind you. And then those pelvic floors are relaxing and dropping on that inhale. And then as you exhale, you're going to do the opposite. So now on our exhale, we're going to fire our inner core. So you're drawing your rib cages down and in. So that core set is making you feel a little tinier. You're closing the flower petals, squeezing the bean, right? We talked about that posterior coffee bean in our bums kind of thing yesterday. But don't fire your glutes. Don't fire your back muscles, and try not to fire your six pack yet. Okay, so I just want you to inhale, relax, exhale, try to find those deep stabilizers, right? Our deep core foundation to turn on first. So this is called anticipatory muscles. Okay, so in research studies, like I was saying yesterday with my daughter who came to the lab and got ultrasounded, when before kids do something hard, like a double leg lift or a sit up or something, their anticipatory muscles fire first. So that's that deep core. So we want to retrain our brain that it's like that's the pattern we want, is that we want that inner core to kind of set us up. That way, multifidi, that Christmas tree muscle in our spine, is doing its job. And then now we tuck our toes under. We find our hands grounded, and then we press into that plank with our inner core stabilizing us first. And now hold it. Yeah, you guys hold it and try to breathe. And your breath is going to feel shallow right now. And that is okay because you're holding, right? We talked about how the breath is going to be shallow if we're holding our pelvic floor up, squeezing the corset, and the diaphragm doesn't have enough space to do a full breath. And that's okay because right now you are doing a tough exercise. And likely you have to engage other things to help you out. Quads, glutes, core, like Timmy was talking about. She had her tummy on before. So come on out of that and tell me, did that feel different? And it's okay if it didn't. This is like you guys are just learning this. Some of you, it's the first time. Some of you, it's a review.
A little bit because I was more mindful of my breathing. Yeah.
Good. Were you holding your breath before when you say mindful of your breathing, or do you just mean
Oh, no, I was like, because I knew what we were breathing, so I was definitely paying attention to it, but just
yeah.
Yeah, I think just in general. Normally though, I have a lot more shallow, like even more shallow breath because it's just like, okay, hold.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Good. How about you, Debbie? Did you feel different?
Um, I I I didn't quite like I don't feel like I really like got it. Like I feel like
Yeah.
that's something I need to practice. Like I was like, what
Totally. What?
it
That
felt
what
weird
is
and
happening?
confusing and
Yeah.
what am I supposed to be doing? And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how do I do
Mm-hmm.
like my body automatically wanted to do what it always does to the same thing. The other thing I noticed was the first plank we did, I realized that I was clenching my jaw super tight, and I'm a clencher.
Okay.
At night, I have a mouth guard because in the night I clench. And so I was mindful. I think that second time, that was the thing for me that
Cool.
I was
Yeah.
more conscious of
Yes.
not clenching my jaw.
Yes. That isn't like, thank you for sharing that. I forgot to talk about this piece. When we're doing something hard, if we can connect to our inner core and fire that instead, these things like TMJ, like grinding your teeth, that will that's that stuff that indirectly gets alleviated when we have this true deep connection to our inner core and our breath, which is like so cool. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you have a night guard, but the night guard really just protects your teeth, right? It doesn't really stop the cheeks and the jaw from clenching. So I really encourage you to keep this practice up because I think it will eventually, again, nothing's overnight when it's a real sustainable healing, but it will help you even eventually like let go at nighttime, right? Like it will come. I promise. I've seen it. I promise. Okay, so super cool. Three things I really want you guys to take away from the workshop. Oops, where did I put it? Is that, and I kind of talked about it a bit already, but just like really accepting where you're at today. And I think, you both really we're open and vulnerable and demonstrated that, and it's new, right? It's like a lot of the stuff, even if it's review, it's not stuff you like think about every day. So it's okay where you're perfect where you're at, and you chose to spend the time and energy to connect, to be here in this workshop, and you're clearly committed to prioritizing your health. So that's awesome. And just reminding yourself that breath work and core is foundational work, and it could be, just tiny bits of consistent practice. I'm going to share a checklist with you guys so that you can, I'll put it in the chat. And if you're watching the replay and you want the checklist, just send me an email. I feel like my female clients love this because they like having like just like a little sticky note to like check it off. Feels like you accomplished. And I also want to send you guys this PDF that is sort of a summary of everything you learned, just like a quick click and grab if you need like a quick reminder. You can also watch the replay too, right? Okay. What was I saying? Yes. Yeah, use the checklist so that you can see your progress and like be consistent. And today you wrote down your benchmarks. Remember that 0 to 10? And if you do the checklist daily, maybe like in a week or two, you can redo your note of like, where's my pelvic floor? Where's my corset? Where's my breast? Where's my rib cage? Is it moving? And then you can see if um, your number on that scale changed. Okay. And my second thing that I always tell my work with my clients is like, give yourself grace and tough love. Okay. So we can't just like, oh, well, like I didn't work out today, so I'll work out tomorrow. Then tomorrow you say that again. Because like then that you're never going to move forward. Okay. You wouldn't let your loved ones, whether it's a child, a partner, a sister, your mom, or a good friend, give up on themselves, right? And if they missed a day or two of their healthcare, self-care, or whatever they may need to do, we might tell them like, it's okay, but you really got to get back into it, start again tomorrow, get back on that train. So it's like a diet. Like we can't beat ourselves up. Don't get into the negative talk cycle. So that's the grace side, but throwing it away and, eating all the treats on the daily and or at every meal, like that's not loving and respecting ourselves either. And the same goes for breathwork and core. The more we connect, the more we work on it, the easier it gets. Actually, right now it's going to feel like what Debbie was saying. Like I'm in a plank and like I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling, but that's because that was our first time. That was your first time, and it's going to just take some practice. Remember, the brain is knowing. Now you know, and now it has to action it, and it has to make those neurosynapses and the patterns that are learned. Like for you, Timmy, right? Your picture marble in the sand. Your marble in the sand for workouts, speed work, plank, whatever, is probably fire everything. And that pattern is an ingrained one, probably from ballet, from childhood. And now you have a new pattern, but it's not, that marble hasn't rolled that much. That sand slide is not as deep.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to keep practicing until it becomes equal or it starts to be your new normal. And that just takes time, right? So good habits, I think firm love, give yourself grace, but we got to have that actionable firm love side. And then the third thing is like mindful movement, intentional mindful movement is really what's going to win. I have got so many clients that struggle with just like time. I think time is the biggest one. Like it feels like you don't have time, but you don't need a ton of time. You just need like the purposeful, intentional pocket of time. So if you have 10 minutes, then spend 10 minutes actually working out rather than 30 minutes mindlessly on a stationary bike on your iPad reading emails or watching Netflix or something like that. Like if you have 10 minutes, great. You're going to intentionally do your breath work. Maybe you try some, I don't know, core stuff like planks or squats, like whatever you're doing, do it with the purpose of being in your body and feeling what your body is doing. And that will also give you information. Things like, oh, like, how come my left side feels tighter than my right today? Or, I can't get my full breath. Like, I must be stressed about something. What can I do to alleviate that? And it might look very different for everyone. It's not, the answer isn't always a spa day or, I can't think of something off the top of my head right now, but it might be something that's a little more actionable. Like, yeah, like I feel stressed because of blah relationship, like X relationship. And you notice that because you're intentionally connecting to yourself, because emotions and mental load start to manifest in the physical body. And sometimes we don't make that connection. Does that make sense? Right? Like, we're so used to pushing everything down, but then the body eventually does say no. That could have like another workshop on that, but I just am just wanting to say that the rule number 3 is just be with your body. Try to put that intention to be with your body just a little bit every day, even if it's 10 minutes. Okay, so I hope that you learned a lot. I would love any feedback, and so you can reach out to me. I would love to also work with you if you're curious. I'll leave, you will get an email, I think, following the workshop. So you can hit reply. There's 2 offerings. So one is like more core. So it's 4 weeks of core training, just basically like taking you through the levels. We really just scratched the surface in these 2 days. And then the other one is my full program. It's called the Move with Ease method. I built it after COVID, really, because I saw that I could help people virtually and faster because they weren't depending on my physio hands to do the thing. They were doing the thing through their mindful movement. And my passion is to help women just like live freely and participate in things like running marathons or traveling the world without, feeling stuck, stiff, and sore in our bodies, and recovering quickly and not letting age be our barrier. So if any of this resonates with you or you're curious, the full program is 12 weeks, so it's definitely more touch points with me, and there's lots of lessons and modules. So to see if you're a good fit, I recommend booking that clarity call first. But from today and yesterday, if you really love the core stuff, there's that standalone 4 weeks that's short and sweet, but it will also help you elevate your game. Any questions before we hop off?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Debbie.
I'm interested, but I want to check my.
Oh, you just cut out.
Oh, I have some coverage for physio. Does the program, is that because you're registered physio, would ensure